Hey everyone, welcome to Intro to DJing, and in this video what I want to do is talk about three of the most popular and in my opinion best beginner DJ controllers, give some pros and cons of each, and talk about why you may want to choose one over the other. Now all three of these controllers are very similar. The one on the left here is the Pioneer DDJ FLX4, the one in the middle is the Pioneer DDJ Rev1, and on the right we have the Traktor S2mk3. So all of these are similar in the sense that they're all about $300 and they have all the features you need to get started. So this is sort of the minimum required specs that you'd want to DJ. So all of these have two decks, they're 2-deck controllers, they have a mic input, they have some effects controls, although it's not super advanced, and they all have 8 pads, which is really nice. What they don't have is they don't have balanced outputs or professional outputs like XLR, meaning they all have RCA out. They're not going to have booth outputs, although they all will have headphone and cue outputs, which is pretty nice. You can't go wrong with any of these, but once again, the best choice is going to be determined based on what your goal is and where you'll eventually want to be. So there may be some reasons you would want to pick. One person may prefer the FLX4 over the Rev1, whereas somebody may prefer the other. There are also software differences. Each of these are kind of optimized for a specific software application, so keep that in mind if you eventually want to, say, use Rekordbox versus Serato, something like that. All of these are compatible with Virtual DJ, which is what I'm going to be doing most of the demos in this class on, because that way you can download it for free and you don't have to pay anything, which is pretty nice, but typically each one is designed for use in a specific application, so we'll talk about that. First one I want to talk about is the DDJ FLX4. Now this comes with both a license for Rekordbox and it comes with Serato DJ Lite, which is pretty nice. So it's compatible out of the box with both. Has an MSRP of about $300. Now the pros of the FLX4 are as follows. The first is this is a club style layout. You can tell this is directly inspired by the CDJs and the DJM, meaning if your goal is eventually to be a festival DJ who's playing on the types of decks that they're going to have at a festival like CDJ 3000s and DJM Nexus 2, something like that. This is going to be taking some of that DNA. You can see it in the effects section. You can see it in the layout. It really does look like two baby CDJs with the DJM in the middle, and that's how the effects are routed. It comes with 2 versions of software, including Rekordbox, which is pretty full featured, and it has a USB-C connection, which is really nice. All the other ones are USB A to B. This one is USB-C, which is nice because that also kind of goes into this next point, which is it is the newest and it's likely going to be supported the longest. So the FLX4 replaces the DDJ 400, which is a really popular entry-level controller. The FLX4, in my opinion, just blows it out of the water. It's way, way better, much better piece of gear, so highly recommended. The cons of the FLX4 are as follows. First is this has the smallest jog wheels of all of these controllers. It's about maybe 100, 110 millimeters compared to 155-ish for the S2mk3 and 170 or so for the DDJ Rev1. So if you're trying to do any scratching or something like this, this one may feel a little bit cramped. And the other thing is this is the one where selecting effects is the most annoying. Rather than having buttons, say, that are mapped to press this button and you'll select reverb, this button and you'll select delay, there's an FX sort of select button that you have to press to cycle through the different effects that you have. So you don't get direct access to each effects, which I think is a little bit annoying, but there's not really much room on here to put any of the other buttons. So I kind of understand why they did it, but I don't know, that is going to be a little bit annoying. The next controller I want to talk about is the DDJ Rev1. This is a controller that comes with a copy of Serato DJ Lite, and this really is a Serato built controller. It has an MSRP of $279.99, so it's a little bit less, and there's also a gold-plated version for $289.99, and I think it's totally worth paying the extra $10 to get the gold layout, which I think is pretty cool. Now the pros of the Rev1 is that it has massive jog wheels. This has the biggest jog wheels of all of these controllers, and this really is meant for scratching and for eventually pushing you down the line to be playing in this sort of battle style layout. So it has these paddle effects like the DJM S9, S11, S13, and that's really nice. You can press the paddle one way and it'll just turn the effect on momentarily until you release the paddle, or you can press it up and it'll lock the effect on, which is pretty cool. It's very easy to kind of do these things quickly without needing to press any buttons or turn knobs. You just kind of flap the paddles around. I really like the paddle effects. And this is a battle style controller. You can tell because the tempo faders there are on the top. So this emulates having turntables that are turned 90 degrees with your battle style mixer there in the middle, which is really, really nice. Now the cons are, first, and this is really a small one, but the Q buttons are tiny. You can see the Q buttons next to the play pause button. I understand they didn't have a lot of room, and making the Q button any bigger would make it a little bit too close to the play button where you would accidentally press it. And of course, if you're playing a track and you accidentally press the Q button, it's going to stop the track and jump to the Q. So I understand why they didn't do that, but it would have been nice if they were able to find some way of making the Q button a little bit better, because in all the other controllers like the FLX4 and the S2 Mark III, the Q button and the play button are quite big. And the other thing, and this is a pretty big downside in my opinion, is it only comes with Serato DJ Lite, meaning you can't record mixes unless you pay a little bit more money. Serato DJ Lite is fine to get started, but if you want to record your mixes or access some other features of the software, you're going to have to either pay for those features or pay to upgrade to Serato DJ Pro. Now, what I had wished they had done is just bump the MSRP up to $300 and included Serato DJ Pro, but I understand they're trying to get people to buy it, and then once they got them, they can get them to pay extra for Serato DJ, but that is a little bit of a downside, so that I do find that annoying, but I get it. It's also nice. You get to be able to toggle between decks 3 and 4. There are buttons up there as well, which is pretty cool. Lastly, we have the Traktor S2mk3. Now, this is really a Traktor controller. It's made by Native Instruments, who makes Traktor, so this is designed to integrate directly with Traktor. And this one has the highest MSRP. It's about $340. Now, for the pros on this, it really shows that this has the highest MSRP, because I think this has the best build quality for the price. This really is a solidly built controller for the amount of money you're spending. All three of these controllers are going to be plastic, but this one really does feel like the most solid in my opinion. It also comes with full-featured software. Traktor is a mature piece of software. There are no limitations to it when you have this controller. I mean, you really are getting the full package. You're not needing to pay any extra, anything like that. It also has this full mixer, so it has your low, mid, high filter knob, gain knob, or your trim knob, things like this. I mean, most of these will have something similar to this, but this one also has a separate sample volume control, which is really, really nice. And it has RGB pads. This is the only controller to have RGB pads, which is pretty cool as well. Now, the cons of the Traktor S2mk3 are, first of all, there's not much compatibility with other software unless you actually want to go MIDI mapping it. And Traktor has fallen behind a little bit in terms of development, so you're not getting your real-time stem separation, although I think they are going to add this in the future. There are other features that Traktor doesn't have that if you wanted to use these other sorts of softwares, you would probably need to map it. The other thing that's a little bit annoying about the Traktor S2mk3 is that it has a mic gain on the back, although the Rev1 may be like this as well, which means you have to set your mic gain and you can't really adjust it throughout the night. However, the one thing that the Traktor S2mk3 does that I think helps mitigate this issue is it has a mic on-off button there next to the master volume, which is pretty cool. Which basically means if you can set the mic gain and then you don't have to turn the knob to turn your mic on and off. You can just press the button when you want to talk and then press the button when it's over, and that can be really helpful if your mic doesn't have a switch on it. So now let's talk about how to decide between these controllers. We've talked about the pros and cons. Maybe you have an idea of which one would be best for you. But really what it comes down to, in my opinion, between these three is what your goal is, what your eventual goal is, and which of the software that you like. So suppose you want to become a club, festival, CDJ type of user. Well, the controllers that you'll eventually be looking into are something like the DDJ 1000 SRT and eventually the Pioneer CDJs, CDJ 3000s, DJM, like the Nexus 2s, things like this. And as a result, if this is eventually your goal, probably would recommend leaning towards the DDJ FLX4. It really does try to have this sort of heritage or lineage. If you're really used to the FLX4 and you look at the Pioneer DDJ 1000, which in my opinion, or the DDJ 1000 SRT, is a fantastic controller, it's going to feel very, very familiar. Is your goal turntables? Do you want to be a sort of turntablist? Do you want to be playing a lot of hip hop, scratching over all of your tracks, things like that? Maybe what you're looking into is the DDJ Rev1, which looks like a great controller, or something like turntables like the Technic SL1200 Mark IIs with something like a DJM S9, S11, or S13. Well, in that case, I would say lean towards the Rev1. This really is a battle style type of controller that's designed to get you in that sort of headspace for these battle style mixers in the future. Lastly, do you want to be a sort of producer DJ where you want to be able to incorporate your own music into your sets? Maybe you're looking into something like the Traktor S2mk3, which is what I use, and it's a really, really solid controller, has motorized jog wheels, things like that. And eventually looking into integrating all sorts of modularity into your live sets, well, maybe look into the Traktor S2mk3. This does integrate with Native Instruments ecosystem and all their wacky controllers that they have, which are actually pretty cool. So that would be the one way to decide between that. If you're saying, hey, I really want to get into music production, I want to be incorporating drum beats, live stuff like that, that would be an option as well. Honestly, you can't go wrong with any of these. So it really comes down to your goals, basically the software, and your own personal preference. And if you're not sure, head on over to Guitar Center and try them out. There's a good chance they will have all three or maybe at least two of these controllers. You can tell the difference, or if you want to download the software and you can try a demo of each of them, see which one feels the most comfortable to you and make a decision based on that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.